Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Good Life Podcast with MB. I'm your host, Mina. Now, I know what you're thinking. We took a bit of time since the last one. But guys, I've been hitting some life milestones. I got engaged, built a home, moved in, celebrated my 30th, and much, much more. But the reality is, guys, I also work full-time. I'm an account manager for a market intel and research company. So the reality is I very much have a 9 to 5. If you can show your support by sharing our content, giving us the thumbs up, following the pages, it'll allow us to keep providing the content that you guys love and want to see. Now, some of you thought after the success of the first podcast that this was going to be simply a health and fitness podcast. That is absolutely not true. The Good Life Podcast has a very clear mission, and that's to provide its audience with valuable yet entertaining content that improves the quality of everyday life. So whether that be real estate, finance, law, whatever you guys want to see, the Good Life Podcast is where you can find all the hot content that you want to know about. And then lastly, guys, we're going to make sure that we're in front of you more often, releasing that content. But like I said, to make us do what we love to do, make sure you show your support by interacting with our content, sharing, following, giving the thumbs up, and all that good stuff. Now, without further ado, my guest today is a family and criminal lawyer who has practiced law for the last 13 years plus. He is a managing associate at Bardo, Zouki, Noureddine Lawyers. Yassine, how are you, man?
I'm good. That was a great introduction, by the way. I'm very, very impressed.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today.
Always a pleasure to see you, Mina.
Thank you for making the time. I know you're a busy man. You were just in court yesterday.
Yeah, I had a 5-day trial. We won. Both charges dismissed, which, yes. My wife got me flowers, but we'll get onto that in a moment.
She got you flowers.
Yeah, for the victory, because I was stressed the shit out of her for 5 days. But yeah, got there in the end, so yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And how's everything on a personal level? How are you going?
Yeah, well, like you, I made the same mistake. I got married. You've got engaged, so you've still got time. I hope your fiance is not watching it. I'll give you my card after, but that's right.
Appreciate it. And when did that happen?
October last year.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's good.
So look, what I wanted to get into today is when people think of a family lawyer, right? A lot of the time, the first thing that pops to their head is there's a problem.
Yeah.
What I want to spend a bit of time exploring today is when I speak to you, you're of the viewpoint that that's actually not necessarily the case.
No, not
right?
at all. No.
So can you share with the audience, why do you think having a lawyer is just as important as having a PT, a doctor, and all the other stuff to, keep life going?
That's actually a good question. You need a doctor to make sure your health's in check. You need a PT also to keep your health in check.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a lawyer as well to ensure that you're on the right side of the law. This day and age, things are becoming a lot more complicated. So, before you get into anything, you want to know what you're getting yourself into. I mean, reading a couple of things off Google is not going to really help you. Unfortunately, I do the same thing. I'm guilty of that. However, it's always good to get advice before you do anything. And that's why I need a good lawyer. In life, I always say you need a good doctor, a good accountant, and a good lawyer.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. I want to go a little bit into your mindset, man, because law is, in my opinion, it takes a very specific person that chooses that, career.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. Nah.
So why the law? Why did you choose to be a lawyer?
It's so when I finished high school, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. And me being the person that I am, I thought, you know what, I'll leave it up to chance. So I called my brother and I said, open up the VTAC guide, or whatever it lands on, I'll just study it. So I had absolutely no passion for law. English wasn't even my strength at school. He flipped the book, landed on law, and I'll just study it. And then, I fell in love with it. I watched Liar Liar, Legally Blonde, and go, yeah, I can do this. There we go.
Seriously.
And that was it, yeah. The rest is all history. I had no passion for it. I'd never met a lawyer. You'd hope so that at the age of 17, you've never met a lawyer. But yeah, I had no idea what they do or anything like that. And yeah, I just fell into it and no regrets.
But you actually finished it, right? Because a lot of people think there's something that they want to start. But once they get going, they realize this is maybe not for them.
Yeah.
What made you stick with it?
I just like arguing with people. That's what it is. you know, I always say there's the wrong way and then there's my way. So you know.
Yeah, okay. Very lawyer-like of you.
No, I don't know. I just enjoyed it. I just thought, yep, I'm pretty goal orientated. So if I put
Mm.
my mind to something, I just wanted to finish it. So for me, it was about completion.
Mhm.
And then after I finished it, I go, all right, well, I've got a law degree now. I think I should be a lawyer. Abandon the idea of becoming an astronaut because, you know, I can't see properly. So yeah, just followed through with it.
Do you know what? The people are already seeing it, but man, you love to crack a good joke. You like to have a laugh. So, being a family lawyer and a criminal lawyer, you probably see some pretty bitter situations.
Yeah,
You get involved in some really deep shit,
yeah,
right?
fucked up shit.
So, yet on a personal level, you're one of the most light-hearted, funniest guys I've probably ever met. How do you stay in such good spirits?
Self-medicating with meth and cocaine's always a good way to start. That always helps. No,
He's
I don't know.
joking, by the way.
No, don't do it. Stay away from drugs. But if you get caught with it, come see me. I'm not sure. I just don't get emotionally attached. I think it is. I mean, your client's problem is their problem. Thank God. And I benefit from that financially. So, and I enjoy. I'm results driven, and I like the outcomes that we try to achieve. And you just don't let it get to you. You've got to stay objective. That's just the bottom line. Anytime you get emotional with anything, you make the wrong decision. Where if you divorce, and I love the fact that I use that word already, divorce emotions from a situation, then you make the right decision. And it's really easy in crime and family law to get emotionally invested with a client. So not invested in like with the client, but in their situation. You've got a job and you need to do it properly, and that's just the way it is.
But that's easier said than done, right? How do you actually, when you're in the situation, what goes through your mind to make you stay objective? Is that something you sharpen?
It comes with experience. It really does, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, early on in the career, your biggest issue was, fuck, am I doing this right? I don't even know what I'm doing, so you're more concerned with your own your own nerves before the client's emotions. But as you get more and more experience, you just see it for what it is. It's a job. You got to do it. I enjoy it. Like I love doing what I do. I genuinely love it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad my brother
Flipped the book and
flipped
found
the
that
book
page.
and got it there. Yeah, thank God for that. Otherwise, I could have been a civil engineer.
If it landed on nursing, you'd be in trouble, I think.
Yeah, definitely. There'd be sexual harassment. No,
Been a complete opposite of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Well, let's get right into it since
Yeah.
you went there. Right.
Yeah.
So, as a criminal lawyer, what type of defendants do you usually represent? And if you can talk a bit to their background and the lead up to their situation that causes them to allegedly commit the crime they're accused of committing?
Oh, they come from a myriad of backgrounds, really. I've got people that are wealthy, people that are living on the margins, people who just really should be in jail. But fortunately for them, they come to see me.
They can afford a good lawyer.
Yeah. It's just anything. I mean, I first touched on crime as a youth lawyer back in 2013, probably, where I was working at a community legal centre, and I was tasked with looking for young kids that came from broken homes that had all these warrants out for their arrest, and just to find them and bring them to court and get them through the system. They didn't even want to punish them; they just wanted to get them through the system.
Wow.
And that's how I got into it, and that was a big eye opener. I mean, really don't want to say it, but unfortunately, people that live on the margins are the ones that end up entangled with the law. But that doesn't mean that just because you come from that demographic that
It defines you.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, you get people that are wealthy that end up stuffing up. I mean, a lot of young kids that for example, most of their issues is just driving. I mean, you can't do anything in this state when you're on the road, literally. So we get quite a bit of work from there, and with the family law background, I get a lot of the family violence matters that come through with it. So it's really just a myriad of people. Okay. Yeah.
Are you a stats kind of guy?
Yeah, I do like my stats. Yeah,
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
Do you believe in patterns?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So in your line of work, when you say you've got, it sounds like a very mixed bag, right? You've
Yeah.
got people on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
What have you found in terms of patterns with people that more from troubled backgrounds? Is there a high percentage of those coming through the door versus rich people?
Oh,
Not really.
nah, I haven't
Wow.
really paid attention.
Okay, there
to
you
it,
go,
yeah.
guys. It really doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. But again, you got to remember, I've got a multidisciplinary practice. So,
You present different.
yeah, where if you speak to lawyers that, for example, that come or work at legal aid firms or they provide legal aid services, they'll tell you, well, if you're getting legal aid, it means you've got no money. So
Okay.
they're pretty busy.
Well, let's keep it specific then. How
yeah.
about, people accused of crimes in, the category of theft, violence, abuse, drugs?
Oh, drugs
Does it
is
get any more
anyone.
specific
Nah,
there?
not really. I mean,
Wow.
theft. I mean, I've had a guy that I had a guy that just had an addiction to stealing from Bunnings. I mean, I understand it. I get it. I walk in there
Seriously?
sometimes. It'll be like, I want that tool. I've got absolutely no reason to have that tool, but I want it, and I don't want to pay for it. Not that I'll do it. I'm not that stupid. But I mean,
Mm.
again, he was a pretty wealthy bloke, but just loved stealing lawnmowers for God knows what reason. And he lived in an
Wow.
apartment, so don't ask me why he was stealing lawnmowers. He just got off on it. So it was
Yeah,
pretty
wow.
interesting. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's an interesting one. I can't say I've heard that before.
No, the lawnmower thief.
And without getting into too much of the specifics, can you tell us a bit about his background?
He was a wealthy bloke. He ran a successful business.
And
I
he
mean,
wanted to steal lawnmowers.
yeah, I think if he had a Jim's mowing, he would have did all right. But he just I don't know what it was. But then you've got other people, for example, that are, they're opportunistic when it
Mm.
comes to taking advantage of a situation.
It's a
It's really
personality.
weird. Yeah, it's
Just
really
how
we
they-
get some weird people come through the door.
Yeah.
Happy to help as long as they got money. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's stay on that one. So, what would be the worst from stealing lawnmowers? What's the worst crime you've had someone engage you?
I don't have anything that's heinous, but I've got probably the funniest one that I've had was this kid. He was a security guard. He used to work at Track back in the day.
I know
and
Track.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you remember
yeah.
Track?
Oh,
Had some
man.
good times at Track.
Yeah.
And yeah, funny enough, that's why I met him. He used to always let me in. And so he was doing a shift one night, and he found a phone. He
Uh-huh.
finds a mobile phone. I think it was an iPhone 8 or 9. I can't remember what it was. He found it, and he decided to take it home. So it was just sitting on the ledge. He was sitting next to the ledge. Oh, sorry, it was on a chair. And he decides to take it home. And the person that owned the phone didn't have a passcode, so he opens it up. He starts going through it, and there's nudes in there. Yeah, it's a female phone. It belongs to a girl. There's all nudes in there. So he goes, what's the appropriate thing to do? So he goes, I'm just going to send the nudes to her dad and see what happens. So he actually found dad and started sending nudes. Then there was some guy that this girl was talking to. He sent the nudes to her. He ended up getting dick pics back. I don't know why he did that. And then he thought it would be a smart idea to take the SIM card out, put his SIM card in there, call up his mate and go, bro, listen, I'm on the latest phone right now. And it didn't cost me $1. And then his mate on the other line goes, Yajahash, they can, Yajahash means donkey for people that don't know what that means.
Yeah. Yeah.
He goes, they can trace it back. And they did. 2 months later, cops come knocking on his door and go, you've got this phone. They went through his room. They had a warrant, and they found the phone in his drawer. He didn't even get rid of it. He just left it there.
He just left it. Nice.
And then he comes and sees me, and yeah, he got charged for theft by finding. But the funniest part was that the police couldn't find anything to charge him with in relation to the distribution of the nudes to a dad. Yeah, like he sent a nude saying, "Daddy, love you." It's just
And
God.
that was enough for the
Oh,
family
he
to press.
he got
Yeah.
done for theft, but the prosecutor, I remember on the day, was trying to find alternative charges. But at that point, I remember the law hadn't caught up to this kind of behavior.
Right.
Now it's a bit different, but yeah, that was pretty funny. I actually, it was really bad for the girl. It was horrible for the girl, but just reading the brief going, fuck, that's actually funny. But yeah, that's probably again, I don't have heinous crimes, but yeah, that was probably one that stands out. And
I
one
love
for the
that.
ages,
That is hilarious.
yeah, and I got him a good behavior bond, so he got off with that. Yeah, after
Yeah, I was
doing
going to
all that,
ask,
yeah,
how long did that process last in court?
I got him. I think we had to plead up because he had the phone. It belonged to someone else, so I had no choice. It's like, what are you going to say? The phone just ended up in your drawer,
Yeah.
and you made a phone call from it, and there's all the evidence there. So it's
Mm.
like, yeah, you pleaded up on this one, mate.
Mm.
We're lucky that the law hasn't caught up to it. So
So it was good. Yeah.
yeah,
Right. So, what about in terms of white collar crimes? Is there anything, without getting into too much detail?
Yeah, I've had a couple of those. They're
Yeah.
starting to get big, yeah, with these online scammers. I had a
Mm.
kid who, I mean, you'd see it on Instagram. Oh, join me and Bitcoin, and you'll make $1 million and da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually
Quit your
I had
9 to 5
Yeah,
and
quit your 9 to 5 and just
live
trade
your dream.
crypto and
Mm.
yeah.
All right, guys, I just want to take a minute and give a big shout out to the sponsor of today's episode, Bespoke Barbers. For anyone that knows me at all, knows that getting a fresh haircut is like a therapy session for me every week. Bespoke Barbers combine over 16 years of professionalism, passion for the trade, and an easy experience to make sure that you leave every time feeling your absolute best. So whether it's a buzz cut, fresh fade, trim, whatever it is, they've got you covered. Booking is made incredibly easy by simply jumping on the link on their Instagram page, which I'll leave for you in the comments. Book the time slot that suits you, and just make sure you rock up to your appointment. You can find bespoke barbers in one of 3 locations: Church Street, Bay Street in Brighton, and Chatston, the fashion capital. Now, very easy to access and throughout the southeast, so make sure you check them out.
So he had a mate that was involved in it, and they told him how to set it all up and, open up this account, open up that account. And then the idiot decided to give his username and password to his Combank account. And they took it. So they took it and they accessed it, and they needed to link it up to these crypto. I don't know anything about crypto. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I mean, good luck to you if you're doing it, but you're an idiot. Anyway, so he gave all these details, and then over the course of about 3 days, he had about 120,000 get deposited into his account, and these accounts, they say he had 120,000 deposited into the accounts, and the way they ended up in there was there was this scam going around at the time called the Hey Mum scam. So someone was sending a random message to someone saying, "Hey Mum, I need money. Can you transfer it to this account
Right.
or pay ID this?"
Right.
And in 3 days, they clicked that 110,000. So he got charged for what was the charge? I can't remember the exact charge, but basically he was involved in the theft of about 110,000. And when I spoke to the informant, because it was an interesting case, he was telling me they've managed to link the funds, and they've done a tracing exercise, and because crypto's got blockchains, you can follow
Yes.
it all through.
Yeah.
And it ended up in some account in Eastern Europe that had about $8.5 billion go through it. And that was just one account, one crypto account that had that money funneling through.
So
Mate.
in layman's terms, for the audience,
Mm.
this all started with someone sharing their account details
Yeah.
for their crypto trading.
And the guy that he shared it to was a kid that he went to school with, who was part of a syndicate that was just basically scamming people.
Use that
Yeah.
to...
It's like me coming up to you and saying, "Oh, I've got this idea. I'm running this crypto platform. We can work each other out." And if you're stupid enough, which my client unfortunately wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, just trusted his mate and goes, "Yeah, here's my username. I've got nothing in there. It's a CBA account." I think he only had like his pay go through it, and that was about it. So he wasn't too concerned. It wasn't like he had hundreds of thousands of dollars in there, but they used it, yeah, in the commission.
That was enough.
Client. Yeah.
And you said, is crypto a good idea?
I know nothing about it.
Okay.
So, I mean, but there's a lot of scams that are involved. We're getting quite a bit of work that comes through with crypto scams. Yeah.
Till now?
Till now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
wow.
it's good for us, but I mean, I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
And is it usually
I
people
don't
that are
know.
looking to claim lost money, like money that's been stolen from them?
No, usually people have just been taken advantage of, like
Right.
what this client, who's given his account somewhere, or his account's been hacked, for example, or, and it's involved in some sort of crime. So we've got a few people that have come through, for example, which have had their accounts compromised and have just been involved in like this, this crypto racket, as I call it. And they've, got to answer these charges. So then they answer those charges. So then they've been put to the expense of seeing a lawyer to get off it, to
that.
ensure that, or to show that they're not involved. They've just been fallen victims. So again, which is great for us. As lawyers.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. So tell me then, like with all these cases, what's a process look like in the court of law? And what do you typically do as a lawyer to prep your clients for that process or those proceedings?
First and foremost, I'll tell them from the outset, don't tell me what happened. I will ask you questions before. Don't sit there and say, "Yeah, I did it, cuz I've done it, and I want you to ensure that I can get away with it." Because my primary, my paramount duty is to the court. So if I know my client's done something, I can't then go to the court and goes, "No, he didn't do it," or argue that point. So that's the first thing I say.
You shouldn't volunteer additional information.
Yeah, I will ask
You'll
you
ask the points you need
questions.
to make.
Yeah. And that's
That's hard when you're dealing with certain people, man.
Yeah, because some people just want to.
Yeah.
They sing like canaries, mate.
Yeah.
They sing to the police. They talk on the phone. Anyway, so that's probably the best way when I first see them. I said, don't
be a
anything.
canary.
Yeah, that's usually the first thing that you do, and then from there, you got to analyze the evidence that the prosecution's seeking to rely upon. I mean, they've got to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you've committed some sort of offence, and then from there you just go through the court process. I mean, if they're driving matters, they're not that hard. You basically get you get summoned to court. You go, you do the appearance. Yeah, he's sorry, he's an idiot. He shouldn't have been doing 140 in a 60 zone, but anyway, he's 19 and dumb. But then you got some of the more complicated matters. Like for example, indictable offences. Some of them need to go through committal mentions, which are a little bit more complicated. I won't bore the audience with that. So usually the process, I mean, it just depends on the offence, really. Traffic offences, really one court date, two court dates, and you're done.
Mm.
Some of the more serious, like, assaults and all that sort of stuff, more interesting stuff, they can take up to a year sometimes. Like this
Yeah,
driving matter that I had, which was my client was charged with dangerous driving and careless driving. That took 12 months to finalise, but we got the result in the end. But that was a lot more complicated. There was expert reports are involved and a whole heap of shit. So it just depends on the case. But I mean, if you've got more serious offences like rape, drug trafficking, they can go over a year and a half, 2 years sometimes.
Okay.
Just say, for example, someone's received a telephone call from a police member saying, I need you to come in and have a chat about something. We just want to find out what's going on. They'll
Right.
call me and go, you seen, what do I say?
Mm.
And I always say, listen, you've got the right to remain silent. So just no comment. Give your name, your address, date of birth if they ask it. And then everything else after that is no comment. And you'd be so surprised how many people are unable to follow that simple advice. Nah, but I want to explain my side of the story. You're dealing with people that do this on a daily. You don't think they know how to catch you out in a lie? Like, do you really think that, like, they already know what's happening? They want to have a chat with you, yeah? Just shut your mouth. And I reckon about 60% don't listen. They come back and, like, oh, get me off. I'm like, you just admitted to half the fucking, half the
Before I
things.
even got here, what do you need me for?
Yeah, you just stuffed. I'm just going to be doing a plea on this one. But I mean, if they're smart and take my advice, and they give a no comment interview when we receive the charge sheet and the brief. Again, what I like to do is just tell them, don't volunteer anything. I'll ask you the questions, especially with more serious matters. I'll ask you the questions, and from there, I'll be able to tell if we've got a defense or not. Don't just open. I'm not going to sit to tell you, did you do it or not do it? I don't want to engage in a long discussion about this. I'll ask you specific questions, and then from there, we'll decide whether or not you've got a defense.
Don't give me the whole script, but what's an example of a question you really care to ask?
That's a good one. Just say, for example, a person was looking at being charged for assault. So they've got some CCTV footage, and they've got some images of they've got images of a punch on that's going on somewhere in the city.
Yes.
Flinders Street, probably.
Yeah.
And they come to you with that, okay? The way I would approach that is say, okay, I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions. Don't tell me what happened. Were you in the city at that night? If you were, whereabouts were you? Do you own a red-coloured jumper? Do you know that kind of stuff? So you're sort of telling him, you're trying to navigate the conversation to a place where they don't come and go, yeah, I saw him, he swore at my mum, and I decided to beat the shit out of him. It's like, well, they've just got CCTV footage. I don't even know who that could be my dad, for God's sake. I don't even know who's in that. So, and the police don't know that. No one knows that. They've just got an image of a guy in a red jumper. So yeah, they're the kind of questions that you want to ask. Yeah.
For the audience's context, when you're asking these questions, you're trying to put together a story in front of a judge.
So the way it works is that the prosecution's got to present their case. They've got evidence that they rely upon, and then they need to establish beyond reasonable doubt that so-and-so has committed a particular offence.
Sure.
So it's really, the onus is on the prosecution to prove it. We don't have to put anything forward.
Okay.
The only time you put forward a defence, for example, is if you're involved in a fight, and what your reasons are for fighting back. So, you might be walking down, Flinders Street. Someone approaches you. There's some mouthing off that goes on, and then the next thing you know, it's on for young and old. So in those circumstances, you might have a defence. You're literally trying to defend yourself, or you've seen your mate getting bashed, so you jump in there to sort of prevent it. They're the kind of defences that you seek to rely upon. So it just depends on the charge.
It depends on the case.
Yeah. You don't necessarily need to have a defence. It's just about discrediting the evidence that the prosecution's putting forward.
So I just want to be super clear on this, right? Just, for the layman's person out there. If the onus is always on the prosecution to prove a case?
Yes.
Okay. Your job is to not give them that proof, essentially. If you're defending someone, you can't have them present, some people are canaries, they talk too much.
Yeah.
That might volunteer some information which then the prosecution can use.
Yes.
Your job is to stop them from doing that until you have to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I'll give you a really good example. So that driving matter that I had, for example, my bloke was in a E63 AMG.
Of course he was.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. He's not a drug dealer though.
Okay.
So he was in one of those cars, and he was involved in a four-car pile-up on Hoddle Street. And so the insurance company wanted to do an investigation. They downloaded the diagnostics from the car. And from the diagnostics, it was saying that he was doing anywhere between 80 to 130 in the 70 zone, for example. So they provide us with the report, and they go, this is our best evidence. And we've got some witnesses as well that say that we saw your bloke do about 130 k's on Hoddle Street, then go into a clockwise yaw at 90 degrees, which is you're going sideways, and then smash into a gutter and hit another car, and that was the reason why we've got this 4-car pile-up.
Right.
So he's looking at losing his license for 2 years. It caused about $400,000 worth of damage.
And was this multiple witnesses?
Yeah, it was like 5 of them. Yeah, so he caused about $400,000 worth of damage. The insurance basically said we're not paying until we figure out what's going on with the crim proceedings. And then so we were tasked with the job, for example, to figure out how we're going to get him out of this one. So we go through the expert report. We see it's a diagnostics that mechanics are supposed to rely upon. There's a different set of data that you're supposed to use, or different.
Right.
Like, for example, crash investigation data. I can't remember the name of the actual module, but some cars are fitted. So in the US, for example, certain cars have to have them, which will tell you freeze frame, what happened 5 seconds before impact, 4 seconds, 4.5 seconds, 3 seconds, 2.5 seconds, a second. So you've got all that
The
data
lead up
there,
right to the impact.
before the impact, where the insurance company was relying upon a diagnostic a diagnostic data system that was used for mechanics, where they plug it in and go, yeah, the radiator's fucked,
Right.
And they were trying to establish that he was doing 130. There was no way in hell he was going to get 130. So for us, it was doing 130 K. So for us, it was to go through the evidence and see where the kinks are in their armor, and then basically just test it in court. And we did, and it all completely fell to shit. The expert that prepared that report basically said that, yeah, I've relied on the wrong data, and I probably got it wrong. The witnesses had no idea what happened. You don't know.
Sure.
An accident happens in a matter of 1.5 seconds. You're not going to remember freeze frame, what happened throughout that accident. So that's what defense lawyers do. They look for problems in the prosecution case and then test that evidence. So, yeah.
And was that enough to get the case thrown out?
It's not thrown out. We went for 5 days.
Okay.
But the magistrate...
He wasn't prosecuted.
Yeah, the charges were dismissed. They said there's not enough evidence. Drug trafficking matters again. Like, they might say that you've got, say, a kilo of cocaine or something like that. But when you test the purity, it's shit stuff, and you won't buy it from them.
Flour.
Yeah, it might be something else. There was another matter that I had on. For example, I had a bloke who was found in possession of meth in his car, some scales, a little bit of cash, and a crack pipe. And the car was a rental car that was involved in a home invasion like 3 days earlier, and my bloke just happened to be in that car on that day. I'm not gonna tell you how he was in that car, but anyway.
Sure.
And he got pulled over, and they found it all in there, and they wanted to get him on possession. I think they were thinking about doing trafficking, and basically we got him off again to say, well, the car's not his. The car's not his. He had no idea about it, and there's no DNA evidence or fingerprints. He fingerprinted everything else in the car except that piece. So, piss off. We got off, yeah. So that's what we do as defense lawyers.
Amazing.
Yeah. Now, I'm not like...
The devil's in the details.
Yeah,
like they
the
say.
devil's in the details, yeah. So you end up learning some weird shit. Like, you ask me now about EDRs. I know everything about them, that's the computer on board for Mercs, for example.
Right.
Like, it's one of the fun parts about being a criminal lawyer. You just learn some weird shit. Like,
because it's going to be used against
you need to know it.
essentially.
Yeah, you need to know it. Yeah.
Now, I want to transition and talk a little bit more about, I know you said your duty as a professional is to never get emotional.
Yes.
Your job is to stay rational and focus purely on the facts.
Yes.
Have you ever been emotionally invested in a case? And when I say emotionally invested, have you ever had a case stick with you more than the others? That one that you really remember?
Oh.
Or a client that you really remember?
Yeah, I have. I have to say I have. I had a client once who, she was 20, when she was 21 years old, I won't refer to which country she was in, but it was a Middle Eastern country.
Sure.
She was on the 5th floor smoking an nargile, and then the balcony collapsed and she became a paraplegic. And then from there, it was pretty bad. So she became paraplegic, very highly intelligent woman. Became a paraplegic, and then said to herself, I'm not going to let this disability stop me. I'm going to move on with my life. Moved from that country, went to Saudi, worked over there, got some qualifications, came to Australia.
Strong-minded.
Yeah, real strong mind, very intelligent woman. Came to Australia and then started an online relationship with some bloke who ended up moving to Australia. and they got married and had a kid. Don't ask me how. She
Sure.
was a paraplegic, she couldn't walk, but they ended up getting married and having a kid. And then once this bloke got his PR, he basically left her. They bought a house together. She was working full time as well and looking after a kid and cleaning the house.
And just to confirm, paraplegic is someone who can't walk.
Yeah, she was in a wheelchair.
So she's paralyzed
Yeah,
essentially
from the hip,
bottom down.
Yeah, from the bottom down. So she was in an electric wheelchair, and she bought a house, and they bought a house, had a family. They had one child who was about 6 years old, and then I remember one day it was like 4:45, and I was getting ready to go home, and then Panna, our receptionist, calls me and goes, "Oh, there's a person just walked in off the street, rolled in off the street, should I say, that just wants some advice." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll quickly go see it, but I want to get out that day. It was 30 degrees. I want to go to the beach." So anyway, I thought, okay, I'll quickly just speak to this person. Spoke to her, and she'd had what was known as a BFA, which is like an agreement, which we'll get into a bit later.
Sure.
And in that agreement, it stipulated that the husband will pay the wife $30,000, and he'll otherwise keep the house, and away we go. And she goes, "I just want to sign it. I want to be over and done with." I'm like, "It's 30 grand." There's, from after discussing some of the facts about the matter, I go, "There's about close to $700,000 worth of equity in this property that looks like that you've put towards it, and your family, and he wants to give you 30 grand, and you're in a wheelchair, and you got to look after a kid." And she's like, "Yeah, look, I just want to be done." He said, "That's the best." He keeps abusing the shit out of me. He keeps putting me down, and I want to just move on. And can you just sign, give me the solicitor certificate to kick on?" I'm like, "Well, look, so cut a long story short, basically, we end up litigating that matter, and I managed to get the majority of the asset pool, and I think he walked out with 30 grand. But I felt so sorry for her because she was, she'd worked hard her whole life as a paraplegic to get to where she was completely verbally abused, physically abused, sexually abused, and you essentially just used, and it was expected to walk out with 30 grand and look after a 6-year-old while,
30 grand.
30 grand, yeah.
That's what you got her or him?
No, I think he walked out with like 30 or 40 grand, and I got the balance, yeah.
Okay.
We sold the house and she got the balance, and she was able to she was able to buy a little unit and just live happily ever after with the little one. But I've always felt sorry for her. I was so impressed. She was like 34, 35 at the time, in a wheelchair, raising a kid in an abusive relationship, and always had a smile on her face. Like, just,
Wow.
yeah. Was really, really impressed. Really, really. But she
Sounds
stuck
like a
with
very
me.
impressive woman.
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
And you said she had a happy ever after in the end. She bought somewhere else, living with her son.
Yeah, she started a business. Again, like, so for those people that are
We'll
blessed.
keep you unnamed, but this is for you.
Yeah.
What a woman.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you one more,
Yeah.
and then we're going to transition over to the family law stuff, just for the sake of time. But I know we talk a lot about you typically represent anyone that can afford you,
Yeah.
but surely even you don't take every case on. Can you think of any cases that you've turned down or typically don't like to represent?
Yeah, heaps. People that can't pay.
Besides money being a factor.
No, look, there's been a few people we've sort of.
Jesus Christ. You see.
Look, I've been doing it for a while, so you start to pick up on who's an idiot and who's not. So, for example, if a person comes to me, has changed lawyers, especially in family law, like 3 or 4 times, you already know there's red flags. Either they complain about everything that you do, or they're just
Just hard to
ungrateful.
please.
Yeah, so you sort of just you overquote the shit out of the job just so they don't
Come back.
So yeah, it's more about dealing with real difficult people. I mean, we're good at it. We deal with difficult people, but then there's difficult people.
You don't want them to their own detriment.
No, they're just problems. They're just
Yeah.
complain. No, it doesn't matter what you did. Like if you get the best outcome for them, they'll turn around and say, "Yeah, I could have done it without you." You know, and if anything goes wrong, then it's completely your fault, and I'm going to do everything to make your life, miserable. You start to pick up on that. It's like a sixth sense that you kind of develop as a lawyer. But there are some red flags. So again, multiple changes in lawyers. Those are the people you don't want to deal with. Just real difficult, needy, and unappreciative clients.
So the main
Simple.
thing is really being able to build a relationship
You need
with
to
your
have one,
clients,
yeah.
right? People you can actually work with,
Yeah.
so they can let you do your job.
Yeah, well, you work for them, essentially. They're your employer at some stage. You take instructions from them. They tell you what they want. You provide advice. And then from there, you work together. So they're the kind of people you want to stay away from, the ones that will not take advice and basically, put a stain on your name for requesting stupid shit in court. So, but you get used to, you're able to pick up on who to stay away from and who not to. Some people,
Sure.
Serial emailers are always people to stay away from. Like I've had clients in the past that will shoot like 25 emails a day about,
Jesus.
and I don't even know how they've
Just
got to,
stressing out.
about stupid shit that's got nothing to do with it. And then when you charge them for reading, it's like, oh, why'd you charge me so much money? I'm like, well, why'd you send me 25 emails? Like, you know, so
Do you typically get more of those clients in the commercial space or the, consumer, personal, mum, dad,
family law.
family law?
Yeah,
for
family
sure.
law.
Okay.
Crim matters, criminal law clients don't really do your head in as much. They sort of just stress more.
I think I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah,
I want to transition over and start talking about the family law stuff.
yeah,
I think there's and myself included.
yeah,
I told you earlier to just tie it back to what we started with. When I hear family lawyer, I automatically think problems, right?
yeah,
And I think quite a few people would share that viewpoint is if you're living, a generally straightforward life, you don't come to think of, oh, yes, I need my doctor, I need my accountant. I don't always think I need my lawyer. However, that can be a bit of, uneducated guess,
yeah,
because the more I speak to you, the more you sort of like, you can have a perfectly healthy life, but it's more just about, taking a proactive approach to things rather than reactive.
yeah.
So I want you to lead on to that. If you want to tie back to that again, importance of a family lawyer. But what I wanted to focus on is what's a binding financial agreement, and why do you think the importance of a prenup exists in a relationship?
Look, before I answer that question, we'll take it a step back.
Mm.
Jeez, I just knocked that. We'll take it a step back. The best time to see a divorce lawyer or family lawyer is before you actually get married, because if you go see a good family lawyer, the best advice I'll give you is don't do it. Just don't get married. Don't get into a domestic relationship with anyone. Just stay single. It's the best advice I can give. But if you're stupid enough to not listen or to heed that counsel, and follow your heart, which is the same organ that's responsible for cardiac arrest, then by all means go for it. um, now, the reason why I say it's really important to see a lawyer before you decide to get married is it is the single most important decision that you'll ever make in your life. It's more important than the career that you take up. It's more important that the house that you purchase, the car that you purchase. It is the single most important decision.
You're not
And-
biased at all there, I think.
No, not at all, not at all. Most important decision, and yet, if you go to purchase a property, you'll go see a lawyer, a commercial lawyer who'll give you the ins and outs about that property. If you're going to get into a business deal, you'll go see a lawyer to get advice about it. If you want to start up a business, for example, you'll speak to your tax accountant, to find out the ins and outs of, the taxation laws that exist around that particular business. However, when it comes to getting married, you don't see any professional. You'll speak to your mum, who then speaks to your auntie, who then goes to some sort of sapia, which is like a gathering, and then they gossip for about 2 hours and come back and they say, yep, this person did this and this person's family did that, and they'll give you the yes or no. But no one actually thinks about going to see a lawyer. Most important, emotional and financial decision that you'll make. And the benefit of having a lawyer from the outset is, so if you're a person who's got assets, you can talk about what happens in a situation where that relationship comes to an end. What does it look like? If you've got children, how does that look like? What are the ramifications for the divorce?
Sure.
People just divorce. They completely ignore that part. They think, oh, I'm getting married, it's going to be fine. But, the trends that we've been seeing as family lawyers, it's on the rise. Separation's on the rise. And yet no one gets any advice about that. And then you think, oh, it's a difficult conversation to have with my partner. How do we divide our assets? Well, I'll tell you what's a lot more difficult is when you have to pay a lawyer to try to get your stuff back out of the house. That's a lot more difficult than just having that conversation. And it's a concept that's been around for a very long time. So, tying it back into binding financial agreements, I mean, the earliest records of binding financial agreements the earliest records of binding financial agreements being around was actually in ancient Egypt about 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Where they found it on papyrus paper.
Of course it was.
An agreement. No, Egyptians, mate. You guys are always
they're
ahead.
all over it.
Yeah, all over it. Like, you're all over it. They'd actually found a record of a guy promising to pay his wife, two bags of grain per month and 2 pieces of silver per year, in the event that they divorce, which was essentially
Right.
a binding financial agreement. Now, if
Right.
I was there back then, I would never have told him to agree to that. Would have been one piece of silver and one bag of grain. But anyway, he didn't have that benefit. So it's that's the most important part about seeing a lawyer is just having that discussion about what happens in the event of a separation.
Let's stick on that for a minute. Tying it back to what you said, I want to read out some marriage and divorce general stats,
Yeah.
which Yassine has kindly shared with us. And I think most people will be quite surprised, like similar to what I was. Whether it's a positive surprise or not, we'll see. But the Australian Institute of Family Studies found that approximately 1/3 of marriages in Australia ends in divorce. A 2021 consensus found roughly 1.8 million Australians were divorced out of 8.8 million Australians who were reported married for that year. Wow.
30%.
Now, you started talking about stats. What do these stats look like right now? And are you seeing a similar trend?
Look, there's no updated statistics. I think they only go back to about 2020, or the most recent ones are about 2021. But what I see, it's like house prices. They just keep going up, and so do divorce rates. I mean, America's at 45% at the moment, and
Wow.
we are following very similar trends to America. So it
Like
is
with
definitely
everything?
yeah, exactly. I don't ask me why, but yeah, it seems like that's the trajectory that marriages are now following. It's on the rise, definitely. 100% on the rise. If the economy is doing bad, there's a bump up in divorce rates. If it's doing good, there's also a bump up in divorce rates. Just anything that happens in the economy, affects that. But we're definitely on the rise. That's 30%. So
Wow.
again, going back to binding financial agreements, if I said to you there's a 30% chance that every time you walked out of this studio, you're going to get punched in the head, you'll probably put a helmet on, won't you?
Depends what kind of person you are. I'll take my chance. No. What's the most common scenario you hear from clients looking to separate?
Are you talking about the reasons why people
Yeah, or like what's a story that repeats itself with clients looking to separate?
I know what the statistics are,
Mm.
but I can tell you what my view is. I think personally, it's communication, a lack of communication, which ties into conflict resolution. People just don't
Right.
know how to resolve conflict
Mm.
properly. Really, that's the real issue. So 27% of the people that were surveyed as to why they were divorced said that it was a lack of communication. And again, communication is literally anything, just being able to talk about your issues or just, again, being able to resolve conflict. So that's always a big one.
Sure.
I think 21 or 22% is a lack of, oh, sorry, I'll rephrase that. Yeah, so about 21% is incompatibility.
Right.
Yeah, so people making the wrong decision, they just don't get along with
Like on a
everyone.
personal
Yeah,
level?
yeah. So there might be, value misalignment,
Mm.
indifferences on views on how to raise children, for example, religious differences. There's all sorts of stuff. That incompatibility is a big factor. And interestingly enough, the amount of times I've had older clients, especially in their 60s and 70s, that
Right.
come to me and say to me, Yasin, I knew from a day one he was the wrong man for me. I knew it from the night of the wedding he was the wrong man. And I was just like, well,
30, 40 years later.
45 years later, you didn't think perhaps he'd come see me earlier. Oh, no, it's about the children and what people are going to think. And so that's a big factor. And about 20% is infidelity.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
20%?
about 20%. So
Is
what
it
is it?
gender neutral or?
I should look into that. I could almost have an educated guess as to which gender does
Yeah,
more, but
yeah, that's what I'm curious
yeah, we'll
about.
keep that in our pants. So 68% really of all divorces that occur in Australia are one of three things: incompatibility, lack of communication, and infidelity. The rest is drug abuse, gambling, and all that wonderful stuff. But they're the main factors.
Tell us about the most complicated divorce case you've ever taken.
Oh fuck!
And this is your chance to be completely as funny as you want.
Oh, the most complicated one.
Something that just got really messy.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah. Fuck, that took 3 years of my life. So the most
Wow.
complicated matter that I've ever dealt with, I had this gentleman who headed up a large interstate company. They were worth millions. I mean, this company was probably worth, north of $50 million. And what he did was, it was worth about north of $50 million. So about 3 years before he decided to leave his wife, he thought it'd be a great idea to transfer this company, this incredible company, to his eldest son. And so he gave it to him 3 years prior to separating from his wife and
Right.
said, son, this is what I'm doing. I don't like your mum. You don't like your mum. We're on the same page.
And he's worth 50 mil at that point.
The company is worth 50 mil, yeah, if not more. And they had other assets as well. There was houses and, yachts and shit like that. They were
Sure.
a very wealthy family. So he transferred that company to his son 3 years prior to separation and then goes to separate. So the wife obviously says, well, if you want to split up, it's they're an older couple, so it's going to be about a 50-50 split. Then, I need half the company as well, and we'll work it all out. And he goes, what company? It belongs to your son now. I don't have anything to do with it. I'm retired. So they had a big argument about that. Now, the mother, who actually was a good person, thought, I'm not going to get my son involved. If my son's got the company, then I'm not going to do anything about it. It is what it is. We'll just we'll split what we've got and work it out from there. So after they did by consent. So they had some consent orders in place for those of you that don't know what it is. That's when lawyers don't make money, and that's when you come up with an agreement between yourselves, and then us lawyers just draft that agreement, and it's pretty
Which you do make money on, for the record.
Not as much, though. Not as much, Mina.
Not enough to reference it.
No. But yeah, you still make money. So anyway, they had some consent. So I wasn't involved in that part. I'm not involved. I'm still on the sidelines at this point. So they've done a consent orders, and then after about a year and a half, the father goes back to the son. He goes, well, son, you want to give my company back? And then the son was like, well, what company? It belongs to me now. You've signed over everything to me. I'm the director, so you can fuck off now.
Wow.
Yeah. He fucked his dad, which I thought was funny.
And he stayed dormant that entire process until his dad came to
Yeah,
us.
his dad came back. Yeah, he said, Dad gave me the company. It belongs to me. You've signed an agreement at the court to say that it's mine. And Mum said, it's mine. So, you can't have it.
And did he give his dad anything?
No, nothing. The property belonged, that's it. The company belonged to the son, and everything was done.
Wow.
So that's where we got involved. So now the father comes and sees my brother. He's also a lawyer. He's a commercial lawyer, and goes, my son's fucked me. I've given him a company and he won't give it back. I want it back. And he goes, well, he went through the paperwork because everything's done properly. Like, it's his. What do you mean you want it back? He goes, no, I want it back. So my brother's scratching his head going, well, did you have an agreement that you're going to transfer it back? Or he goes, yeah, I said to him, son, I hate your mum. You don't like her as well. I'll give you the company. And once we've sorted all that out, that was the agreement. And he goes, well, we can't really say that to anyone now, can we?
Yeah.
So I get called. And he goes, this is the
Sounds like a good
situation.
time.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, what do we do? And I was just like, well, fuck, why just transfer it to your son? He goes, I didn't want to give it to your wife. I go, well, guess what? You're going to have to do something about that. She's going to get a cut of it. The only way to work this out is to go back to your wife and say, I lied to you. I did 1, 2, 3, and we need to go back to court on this one. So there's a provision of the Family Law Act called it's called Section 79A, and pursuant to that provision of the Family Law Act, you're allowed to set aside final orders that have been in place. So he had to go back to court with his wife and say, well, look, I've lied. I transferred this property to my son to fuck her, and now I need to fuck her and him. So let's work it out. So, so that's what. So that's when we got involved, and that was So we had to go back to court and then show to the court, the text messages and the discussions and lead evidence about us transferring that company to the son to defraud the wife, so that she didn't get anything out of it. So. Yeah, moral of the story is don't get married, don't have children, and don't trust them.
And that took 3 years of your...
Yeah, so it was about 3 years of litigation.
Wow.
Yeah, in the end, I'm not going to tell you what happened, but he got his company back, but not all of it.
Another stat that I thought was really interesting you shared with me, a 1997 study done by the Australian Government Institute of Family Studies, which interviewed over 650 divorced Australians, acknowledged that even though society has shifted significantly since 26 years ago, most lawyers still found those reasons still as prevalent now as they were back then.
And you find that surprising?
I do.
Why?
Because I would think that in 26 years we learn from our grandparents, our parents, and the older generations, but it seems like the heart wants what the heart wants.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by it because we are humans. We make the same mistakes. I mean, we had 2 world wars in a matter of 50 years. That's a testament to our stupidity. But anyway, we'll move along from that.
My point exactly.
And we're on the brink of a third one. But anyway, we won't talk about politics just now. I'm not surprised about it because people are people. I mean, humans are humans. They're going to have the same problem. I mean, Marriages are relationships. I mean, if you're unable to communicate with your partner and you don't have the relevant conflict resolution skills,
Mm.
then communication is going to be one of those reasons as to why it's going to break down. And in 26 years, I'll tell you what's the most interesting fact. Despite all these studies, they don't teach conflict resolution at school, do they? Do you remember having a class about conflict resolution?
I
No,
don't remember any
no.
of that.
Do you remember algebra? Having to do algebra?
Yes, I failed it multiple times.
Yes, stupid. Look, to the mathematicians, hats off to you. It's really complicated, but I mean, for a person like I don't really use it,
Yeah.
But conflict resolution would be a skill set that would be pretty important, and I think you'd need to teach that in schools if you wanted to have a shift in one of those reasons as to why people are separating, which is communication, which is in fact is the prevalent reason as to why people separate.
Right.
Then assist providing education on conflict resolution would fix that issue. So
I completely agree.
yeah,
I think that in school we learn, I mean, I'm sure we use some of the stuff we learn in school, but if we say there's, 3 or 4 things that we use in the real world, we probably learn 1 or 2 in school.
if that,
If that.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I learned how to. What was school good for? Reading, multiplying, and learning how to cheat in exams. But other than that,
Sounds like you went to an awesome school. Bro. So the next section is going to be rapid fire questions. Just
Yeah.
for the sake of time, I want to fire through these.
Yeah.
What was the weirdest reason you've ever seen someone wanting a divorce?
Because his mum told him to do it.
Love it.
Yeah,
What's the most challenging part of the job for you?
getting money,
What's the most rewarding?
getting paid.
I love it. I love it. Moving it on to de factos. A 2021 consensus found roughly 2.2 million people in Australia identified as in a de facto relationship. How is a de facto relationship defined by law?
A de facto relationship is two people living together in a genuine domestic basis. So people that are going to go to hell for living in sin essentially is what a de facto relationship is.
Love it. Online dating in 2024. You hear it all the time that online dating and social media has pushed people further apart. A survey of over 54,000 Australians found that around 30% of relationships in 2019 originated purely online.
Yes.
Changing traditional ways of finding love, which research used to suggest lasted longer.
Yeah.
I've got to ask, what are some of the dangers of online dating?
Catfish. No, there's.
Can you
What are the
talk to
dangers?
factors such as harassment, sexual violence, getting scammed, and the last one, catfished?
I think the risk in online dating is the front load of the relationship. I mean, just talking to someone online and then meeting up with that person, you don't know who you're talking to.
Mm.
But I don't see that any different to meeting someone out on the street. You don't know who you're talking to. But there seems to be more data around what happens in online relationships, only because it's a data-based system. It's a database system in relation to relationships. It's a database system centered around relationships. So that's probably why you got those figures. But I mean, probably the most prevalent one that I've come across is people getting financially scammed without actually having to meet the person. But again, that's no
Interesting.
different to meeting a person off the street and getting scammed.
Right.
Your partner needs to get the best of you. You need to be the most patient with your partner, the most forgiving with your partner, not the harshest, the most critical. And that's what I find a lot with people that are incompatible with one
That's
another.
music to my ears coming from you,
I'm
Sin.
telling you, that's one issue. Number two is people tend to, in arguments, listen to respond, and they never listen to understand.
Can we say that one more time?
When it comes to arguments, people listen to respond and not to understand.
Not seeking to understand.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what's really interesting as well. It's communication. So a lot of the time we've been brought up to say, oh, if you've got a problem with someone, just go speak to them. But sometimes you can't speak to the person. There's nothing wrong with if you're arguing with your partner, say, look, I can't look at you right now. We go into the other room and we're going to text message each other, limit it to 3 exclamation marks per message and no caps. And it just filters through the emotions sometimes. When you're reading something as opposed to hearing it, it might have a different call. You need to understand what is the conflict style of your partner and then try to sort of work with that. Some people just crack the shits and just start yelling. They need to go, cool off, and then come back. So if you notice that's the conflict style of your partner, just shut up while they're doing that. Let them go off, come back, and then get them to apologize.
De-escalate and then...
Yeah, de-escalate.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, people don't know how to employ that. And again, it's because people lack conflict resolution skills. So you never taught it anywhere. I never learnt conflict resolution skills.
Emotional intelligence?
Yeah, there's that as well. I mean, but that develops with age. That's why
Mm.
people start to split at 40, I guess. You get a bit more intelligent at that age. But if I was going to if I was going to say what's the most important thing when it comes to relationships is one, don't get into one. Two, you know, you need to both use your heart and your mind. Pick someone that you're going to genuinely be compatible with, and don't just follow your heart emotionally, because your heart does make the wrong decision sometimes, but your mind, it's a little bit different. And again, just keep in mind that, your partner just needs to have the best part of you. Always try your best with your partner, and don't stop trying. I mean, just because you get married and have kids and, life starts to, get away from you, you need to give it attention. It's like any other relationship. There's no difference between, a friendship and a relationship.
Sure.
And a marriage, essentially. It's a life partnership. It's a business deal, really, if you think about it. This is your partner for life.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it too.
Yasin, this has been quite an insightful conversation.
Yeah, I'm glad.
To add to that, actually, I think it's just important, guys, to approach things with a clear mindset. Something that a lot of people I find in my experience, don't really do is they don't self-reflect. They don't seek to understand why a situation keeps happening. They just find themselves in the middle of it. I think if people exercise a little bit of, patience, think things through, and as we said earlier, just take the right steps to have a positive outcome, be a problem for you because you wouldn't get as much business. But
but with the current trends, I'm fine. Don't worry about me.
I think it'll take some of the pressure off, though.
A little bit, yeah.
Yasin, was there anything that you wanted to talk about today that I haven't asked you?
No, actually, no. I think
You happy with that?
Yeah, we've covered everything. I think it was a good chat. I hope for those of you that are watching, you've learned something. Always, before you make any decision in life, if there's a professional that can give you advice about that particular decision, seek it, especially when it comes to marriage.
Do you want to tell the audience a quick summary of your business and where they can find you?
All right, so I'm one of the managing associates at Bardo, Zouki, Noureddine. We've got 4 offices, one in Glenroy, one in West Melbourne, one in Footscray, one in Springvale. We're a multidisciplinary firm. We've got an immigration law practice. So the people that are coming to the country, you can blame us for that.
I love it.
We've got a commercial law practice, a family law practice, and a criminal law practice. You can find us at www.belawyers.com.au. Otherwise, just reach out to Mina, and I'm sure he'll give you the details. I will give you a referral fee.
And if you do get referrals from this podcast, they'll be looked after?
110%, I promise. 10% off your first job. But yeah,
I'm putting you on the spot here, free consultation?
Yeah, done. If you contact us and say, and only for the family law and crime, because commercial lawyers are pricks.
Sure.
For family law and crime, if you mention this podcast, then you'll get a free consultation.
Yasin, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for taking
You're most welcome.
All right, guys, we have actually collaborated with the sponsor of today's episode, Bespoke Barbers, to bring you guys a massive giveaway. Bespoke Barbers have put up 2 complimentary haircuts for the lucky winner, which will be selected 1 week from today through the Instagram page. To get a chance of winning one of 2 complimentary haircuts, you need to make sure that you follow the page, leave a comment, and share this video to your story. The winner will be selected from the new followers on the Instagram page, so make sure you are following our page and sharing this video to have a chance to win. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.